Constantly chasing instant gratification in my mid 20s left me with $48,000 in debt and in a constant state of stress. But after 3 years of practicing delayed gratification, my life looks a lot different. And honestly, it really wasn't that hard to make the change once I had a few strategies to make it easier. So today I want to share the strategies that I used with you. So hopefully it can help you make the same shift in your life. To give you a bit of context, out of that $48,000, 15,000 of that was from student loans and 15,000 was from two car accidents that I got into within 9 months of starting college. And the remaining $18,000 is money that I basically just blew on instant gratification and buying things to make life more convenient, which included things like going out for drinks with friends, buying takeout whenever I didn't feel like cooking, which was often, buying things like an Xbox and a Nintendo Switch just because my friends had them. But easily my biggest purchase was a trip to England. There was an opportunity to travel to England for a week with school, and it was always a dream of mine to go there, and I just felt like if I don't go now, I'll never go. And so I spent about $1,200 on the flight and the hotel, the hostel, but that doesn't include all the money that I spent while I was there, which was a lot. I really wasn't thinking about how much I was spending while I was there. It was just like, oh, this is fun. Oh, this is cool. And it wasn't until I got home that I really looked at what I spent, and it was closer to like $3,000 that I had spent while I was there, especially because I wasn't thinking about the conversion rates and things like that. Back when I was in this phase of constant spending and chasing instant gratification, something that I used to always say every time I would make a purchase that I knew I didn't have to pay today, but I would have to pay someday, I would always say, it's future Sam's problem. And I'm Sam, by the way. That was my way of kind of brushing it off, because today I was just charging it on a credit card, and as long as I could make the minimum payment, I felt like that was good enough, and there would be a day in the future I would have to be serious about it, but that day wasn't today. But you know what happened? In early 2020, I graduated from college, and suddenly I became future Sam, because now I had my student loans that I also had to deal with on top of my credit card debt. And on top of that, we were in the middle of a pandemic. So I had just enough money from my student loans to cover my living expenses until my co-op started, and then that would have taken care of it. But because of the pandemic, and that kept getting pushed back farther and farther. Every week I would get a new email saying, oh, it'll be at least another week until your job starts. Oh, it'll be another week. It'll be 2 weeks. It'll be 3 weeks. You know what? We'll just let you know when. So the money in my bank was slowly shrinking, but the bills were not. And that was when I had my rock bottom moment where I realized, oh my God, I am screwed. So I started researching different ways to get out of this mess, different ways to not only handle my debt, but also to change my mindset in a way where once I got out of debt, I wouldn't fall back into the trap and start the cycle all over again. So the first strategy that I used that you've probably heard other people talk about before is finding my why. And the reason why that's so important is having a strong why can really keep you going in those moments when things get hard, when you don't feel like following the plan anymore. And when instant gratification is dangling in front of your face and you're like, ooh, that looks nice. For me, my why was I never want to be in this place ever again of feeling hopeless, like I can't afford to live and cover my basic needs. And not only that, but I want to build an even better future. I want to build a future where I'm financially free, where I don't have to rely on a paycheck in order to live. And having that why has made it so much easier for me to manage my spending and to not take every opportunity for instant gratification that comes up, because I have this bigger goal in mind. And as much as I might want sushi this weekend, or I might want to go take a girls' trip over the summer or something like that, I know that while I want those things right now, what I want most is this vision of the future that I've created for myself. Having that big, irresistible goal that you're chasing is something that can really help keep you going and keep you sticking with the plan. The second strategy that I used is simply being flexible. It sounds really simple, but it can be hard to kind of balance that instant gratification with delayed gratification, because there does have to be a balance. If you have absolutely no gratification along the way, you're going to be miserable. And if you're always chasing delayed gratification, you never reach the point of gratification. So for me, I had to find a balance with my spending, because in the beginning, I felt because I had spent so much money and I had messed up so big that I had to then restrict myself so much in order to make up for all that I had spent. And that ended up putting me in a really unhealthy cycle of extreme restriction and then extreme spending once the restriction got to be too much. And so it took a while for me to really sit down and come up with a healthy balance for myself where I can still spend money, I can still enjoy things, I can still have takeout, I can have my sushi every now and then. I just can't have it every week. And at the same time, I'm still working towards my bigger goal, but I am allowed to enjoy my life along the way. So, whatever it is that you're working towards, I highly encourage you to incorporate some flexibility, because the all or nothing mindset, in my experience, can and will backfire on you. The third strategy that I used was pay yourself first. So this applies more to like the financial goal aspect than to other sort of goals. But for me, what I did in the beginning was I would, buy everything that I wanted, chase my instant gratification, and then whatever money I had left over, that would go towards my investments and towards building that future that I wanted. But shifting them the opposite way and having the money from my investments come out first and then spending whatever was left over, I found it did two things. So, first, it made it so that when I did spend my money that was left over, I didn't feel guilt, because I had started off focusing on the goal. The goal was taken care of, and now I could spend without worry, which again made it easier to stick with it because I wasn't constantly stressed. The other thing was that because what I did is automate it, so as soon as my paycheck hit my bank, it immediately went into my investments. It bought specific investments. I didn't have to think about any of it. And because it was so automatic, I didn't really miss the money. Like I didn't really notice that it was there. I didn't notice it was missing because it was moved before I could even consider spending it. I didn't have to reason with myself. It was just done for me. and then I got to spend what was left over. The fourth strategy that I used is setting myself up for success. So for me, one of my biggest expenses was, or one of the things I spent the most money on impulsively, is takeout. So instead of doing that, something I really got into was meal prepping. So for me, every Sunday, that's what I do. I'll prep about 2 or 3 different meals and I'll prep them in bulk. And then that way, when I come home from work and I'm tired, I don't have to cook. I can just reheat one of my meals. And because I have, 2 to 3 different meals prepped, I'm not eating the same thing every day and getting bored of it. But because I have something so simple to just grab and eat, it gets rid of that impulse of, oh, there's nothing to eat. I'll just, buy takeout. And it maybe takes me an hour or two of work, really, but it ends up saving me so much money over time. And that's just like, that's one small way that I set myself up for success. Another thing that I do is I really try to reduce my subscriptions because I find I'm somebody who subscribes to a lot of things and then I forget, and then I'm constantly getting charged because I forgot to cancel something. So, as much as possible, I try to use the free version and just tune out the ads for things. Why pay for something that I can get for free? The third thing that I did to set myself up for success financially is I actually got help with my debt. If you're in Canada, there's some like nonprofit organizations that can help you manage your debt. So I personally went with the Credit Counseling Society of Canada and basically called them and talked through my finances, what my debt was, what my income was, and then they kind of assessed what the best path would be for me. So they can do things like consumer proposals, debt repayment plans, bankruptcy. I feel like there's another one, but they can help you find the best way forward with managing your debt. So for me, that was a debt repayment plan. And basically, what they did for me was they contacted my creditors and they negotiated my interest. They actually got it so I don't pay any interest on my debt anymore, which is a huge thing. So just doing that alone made it so I'm gonna have my debt paid off in 4.5 years instead of 15 to 20 years that it would have been if I had still been paying interest and still making that minimum payment. There are some rules and things that I have to follow while I'm in this repayment program. Like, I can't take on any new credit unless it's secured credit, meaning I would have to put money down on a credit card and then I could only spend within that much, kind of thing. It's almost like having a prepaid credit card. Yeah, something as simple as making that one phone call is saving me tens of thousands of dollars in interest payments. And it's also saving me a decade or more of repaying my debt. So that's like a big thing, in my opinion, is like look for ways to get to your goal quicker. Look for ways to get to your goal easier. Look for ways to set yourself up for success. When you have things in place that make it easier to reach your goal, it makes your goal feel a lot closer and more tangible versus if all you see are all these obstacles in the way. It's going to make your goal seem almost impossible to reach. So then you're kind of like, well, why bother? This is so far off. Why not just, have the takeout this weekend and next weekend? And why not subscribe to these 800 things? And why not buy this thing that I want? It's when it's easier, for me at least, the goal feels closer. And so for me, it's like, why would I, buy this and focus on that and all these little things when this is so close, if that makes sense. The fifth strategy that I use to help me stay more focused on delayed gratification was tracking my progress. And for me, I feel like by tracking my progress, it gave me little moments of gratification along the way. So instead of waiting 4.5 years to have my debt paid off in order to feel that gratification, by tracking it every month and seeing how much closer I'm getting, to me, every month I get like a little jolt of gratification because it's like, oh, look, I was, $27,000 in debt here. And like, but then here I'm $25,000, and just seeing it slowly work its way down, it feels good. And it also gives me like a renewed sense of hope that, one day I will reach this goal. And it just makes it more satisfying along the way to reach that goal. So that's something that I would really encourage, is that whatever it is that you're doing, track your progress along the way. It helps reinforce that you're going in the right direction and that what you're doing is worth it. So those are the 5 different strategies that I've used, and so far they've served me really well. I was, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I was $48,000 in debt. I am actually 3 years into my debt repayment program. So right now, in terms of my debt, I actually owe about $13,000. That's about $8,732 for my credit debt, and then $4,540 towards my student debt. But on top of that, I've also built up a fund for buying my first house, which I intend to be a rental property. I have $9,500 in there. I've also started investing in a TFSA, which I have $5,820 in. I built up an emergency fund. So once I come out of my debt repayment program, I won't have to rely on my credit card for emergencies. And I have started putting a bit of money away for retirement. I've got $1,730 in there. So just by making simple mindset shifts, I've not only been able to pay down my debt, but I've also been able to start building that better future for myself. And tracking all of that is something that really keeps me going. And at this point, it's something I find exciting, and it's something that I'm actually enjoying, which is weird. But yeah, I really encourage you to think about those 5 strategies and what might work for you and make it easier for you to reach your goals. And if you're interested in seeing more videos like this, please subscribe. Also, if you're wondering what this situation is, I personally want to create faceless content, so that's what this is. If you have any ideas for other ways of filming or framing this that you think would look better, by all means, let me know in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one.